we have briefly examined uncontrolled forms. In this exercise, we'll set up a simple uncontrolled form in our React application and in the process learn how we can set up an uncontrolled form. To get started with this exercise, in our project, go to the header component. In the header component, we are first going to set up a modal which will be displayed on top of our page, and this modal will contain a login form that we will set up as an uncontrolled form. So first step, we will create a modal using the React strap modal component. So going into our header component, let me pull in the modal related components from React strap. So we'll pull in button, modal header, and modal body from React strap. So once we pull that in, then what we can do is to set up our modal in our application. To set up the modal in our application, let's go into the code here. And after the Jumbotron, I'm going to introduce the modal here. So we'll say modal, and this modal will be controlled from our React component, and we'll see how we can set up this modal. And the modal itself will contain a modal header and would contain the title as login, and then the modal body, which later on we will introduce the form into the modal body. So with this, the basic modal structure is in place, but for this modal to be shown and hidden, we need to set up something within our code to trigger this modal. So to do this, we will set up another value within the state called isModalOpen, and initially will be false. This Boolean variable will track the state of whether the modal is open or not. And to toggle this modal, we will implement a function here called toggle modal, and we need to tie this toggle modal in as here. So we'll, just like we have the toggle nav, we'll say toggle modal and toggle modal bind this. So with that, our modal is set up. Now within the toggle modal, what do you think we are going to be doing? We'll be toggling the modal just like we toggle the nav here. So we'll just use that, and then we'll just say isModalOpen. Say isModalOpen. This state isModalOpen. So we'll be toggling the value of the isModalOpen whenever the toggle modal is invoked. Now, where is this toggle modal going to be invoked? So to set this up to control our modal, let's go back to the modal that we have just introduced, and then within the modal, we'll have the isOpen attribute, which we have to tie to this state isModalOpen, as you would expect, and then we'll say toggle is this toggle modal, and this same thing also has to be put into the modal header here. With this, our modal is set up in our header component. Now, how do we invoke this modal? To invoke this modal, we will add in a button into our header here into the nav bar here. So inside this nav bar, I'm going to go in and introduce another nav here with the class name as ML Auto. So this way we will give a left margin as much as possible for this nav bar. So we'll push whatever is inside this nav bar to the right edge of our nav bar. So inside this nav, I'm going to create a nav item. So this is another nav bar, that is a nav element that is included inside the nav bar. So here I'll say button, outline button. On click, when this is clicked, we'll just invoke the toggle modal, because that's what we want this button to do. We want this button to be able to show and hide the modal here. So we'll let that toggle the modal there, and then in here we'll say introduce a font awesome icon there. So we'll say span class name FA sign in. So this is a sign in font awesome icon here. So we'll say FA sign in, and we'll say login. So with that, let's save the changes and go and take a look at our application. Going to our application, you now see that in the nav bar to the right edge, you see this button. So this is what we just introduced. So when we click on the button, you would see the modal pop up on the screen. The modal has this header title as login, and the modal body is currently empty. And the modal behaves exactly like how we expect modals to behave. That's it. Our next step is, of course, to set up the uncontrolled form inside the modal. So to set up the uncontrolled form, let's go back to the header component. Going back to the header component, I'm going to set up the uncontrolled form inside the modal body. So we'll say form on submit this handle login. So what that means is that I'm going to implement this handle login function a little bit later, and then close the form there. Now, what do we do inside this handle login form? So we'll say form group. We have done this already, so this should be familiar to you, how we set up forms using the React Strap form elements. Form group, label, HTML for username. A login form usually contains the username and password, so you'll say username label, and then we'll say input type text, ID username, name username, and that's it. That's the username part there. Let's set up the password part here, right below that, and then we'll say form group, label for HTML for password. So the input type is, so if you set it up as password, the password will not show up. Instead, you will see the password will be hidden, and you'll see only dots in the input box there. So this is the password. Then we will set up a checkbox here. Inside the checkbox, So usually you would find a checkbox in your form saying remember me or something like that. So that's the kind that I'm setting up here. Input type checkbox, name remember, remember me, and then finally we'll set up a button of the type submit. Class name should be BG primary. So a blue colored button here, and say login button. Actually, I can use color primary for this login button. We'll have to import the form related stuff from our React strap. So we'll say form group input button. What else did we use? So we used form group input button and label. So let's import label also from React strap. We have already imported the button, so don't need that. Save the changes, and going back to our browser, when we click on the login button, now you see the modal pop-up with the username, password, and the login form being displayed here. So you should be able to type in your username and password and click on the login to submit your login information. Since we are going to implement this form as an uncontrolled form, so here I will implement this method called handle login, which receives the event as the parameter here. And also let me tie the handle login in here. So we'll say handle login and bind that there. And within the handle login event, what we will do is we'll say this toggle modal. So we'll close the modal at this point once the form is submitted, and then we'll say alert username this username value. I'm just popping up this alert box with the values that the user entered in the form, just so that we can verify that the form has been submitted. Password, let me give a space there. Remember. So you see that I am retrieving the values directly from the DOM and then using that here. And then alerting, and then we'll say event prevent default. Now, how do we retrieve the values from the form there? So to do that, we need to get the ref to the form, references to the form. So going into the form, for each of the inputs, now since we are using this inside React strap. React strap already uses ref for something else. So in a React strap component's input, we should use inner ref instead of ref here. Inner ref here. So we'll say inner ref equal to input this username equal to input. So that is how you retrieve the information from inside your input field there. Similarly, for the password, inner ref this password inner ref, and for the remember me also this remember is input. With this change, so notice how we are extracting the reference from the input boxes from the DOM where the values are stored, and then making them available to our React application. And then so here within our handle login, I'm able to pull in the values like this: username value, password value, remember checked, and then be able to see those values. Let's save the changes and then go and take a look at our application. Back to our application, let's open the login form and type in some values into the form and then submit, and you immediately see the alert box pop up with the information here: username, password, and so what this means is that my React application is able to obtain information whatever I have typed in the form, and so I'm able to see that. Similarly, if I don't click on the button, then remember will be false and the username and password information will be shown here. You could even carry out form validation if you choose to, although I don't explicitly illustrate that in this course, but that is left as an exercise for you to think about. With this, we have demonstrated how we can make use of uncontrolled forms within our React application. This is a good time for you to do a git commit with the message uncontrolled forms.